Hi, who here loves when their nails are perfectly done? Me. I'm Sarah Gibson Tuttle, and I started Olive in June because, let's be real, we all deserve to have gorgeous nails, but who wants to spend a fortune or half their day at the salon? And that's why I created the Mani system, so you can have that salon-perfect manicure right at home. And guess what? The best part? Each mani only costs $2. Yep, you heard me, $2. No more $30, $40, $50 salon trips that eat up your day. Now you can paint your nails whenever you want, wherever you want, and trust me, you're gonna be obsessed with your nails and everyone is gonna ask you, where did you get your nails done? And here's a little something extra. Head over to oliveinjune.com and get 20% off your first Mani system with code PERFECTMANI20 at oliveinjune.com/PERFECTMANI20. That's code PERFECTMANI20 for 20% off at oliveinjune.com/PERFECTMANI20. You're all set for a nail glow up. Let's get those nails looking fabulous, shall we?
Most all-in-one HR systems are a patchwork of disconnected and manual tools. Rippling is totally automated. If you promote an employee, Rippling can automatically handle necessary updates, from payroll taxes and provisioning new app permissions to assigning required manager training. That's why Rippling is the #1 rated human capital management suite on G2, TrustRadius, and Gartner. If you're ready to run the backbone of your business on one unified platform, head to rippling.com/AcastBiz and sign up today. That's RIPPLING.com/AcastBiz to sign up.
Hi, this is Matt from P1 with Matt and Tommy, and this episode is sponsored by eBay. The cars you'll find on eBay are just different. They come with a story that you can't wait to share. Like this 1973 Dodge Charger on eBay that's been tucked away in an Arizona barn for over 40 years, only 55,000 miles, and somehow in great running order. It even has a rare sunroof. Suddenly, a car that was hidden for decades is being delivered in just a few clicks with eBay's secure purchase. All the paperwork handled. There are thousands of cars on eBay, from unique finds like the Pontiac Grand Prix SJ to daily drivers, and now with a new way to buy them. eBay. Things people love.
Youth mental health is a complex challenge that requires comprehensive solutions. We must strengthen after-school programs. We must make digital literacy tools available in our schools. We must work with mental health professionals to support children. And we must empower mentors, educators, and parents to keep kids happy. Learn more about our commitment to finding lasting solutions at empowerourfuturecoalition.com/solutions. Paid for by the Coalition to Empower Our Future.
Hi, this is Matt from P1 with Matt and Tommy, and this episode is sponsored by eBay. The cars you'll find on eBay are just different. They come with a story that you can't wait to share. Like this 1973 Dodge Charger on eBay that's been tucked away in an Arizona barn for over 40 years, only 55,000 miles, and somehow in great running order. It even has a rare sunroof. Suddenly, a car that was hidden for decades is being delivered in just a few clicks with eBay's secure purchase. All the paperwork handled. There are thousands of cars on eBay, from unique finds like the Pontiac Grand Prix SJ to daily drivers, and now with a new way to buy them. eBay. Things people love.
Hello, I'm Sarah and welcome to the Whispering Woods After Dark. I've got a crazy story to share today about the Bennington Triangle and all of the disappearances. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? There are some places where time behaves badly. Places where your sense of distance warps, where the air feels thicker under the trees, and the silence presses in like a hand over your mouth. You walk in, thinking you'll be gone an hour, and suddenly the light has changed. Your breath starts to show. Your confidence starts to drain away, drop by drop. In October 1950, in a patch of woods east of Bennington, Vermont, a young boy sat in a truck while his mother stepped away. 30 minutes, that's all it took. When she came back, the seat was empty. She heard no cry, and there were no footprints on the road. No scuffle evident in the undergrowth. Just absence. The kind that doesn't feel natural. The kind that makes your stomach tighten because you know instantly that the woods have swallowed something they shouldn't be able to swallow. And then the dogs arrived. Bloodhounds, brought in to pull a story from the dirt. They lowered their heads and began to move. Slow at first, then purposeful, pulling the handlers as if they'd found a thread. They tracked him to the road, and there the scent stopped, as if the child had lifted straight up from the earth. This is Bennington Triangle, a name given later, long after the searching was done and the posters had faded. A shape drawn over a wilderness, where people didn't just die, they vanished. We're in the Bennington area of Vermont, in the shadow of Glastenbury Mountain, a place of old logging towns and abandoned roads, where the forest reclaimed what people built and then kept going, closing over everything like water. Between 1945 and 1950, 5 people disappeared in and around this wilderness. One body was later recovered, and even that didn't bring answers. The others were never seen again. And what makes the Bennington Triangle unsettling isn't just the missing. It's the way the missing stack up. Different ages, different circumstances, different seasons, all in a corridor of land that seems to erase the evidence as if it resents being watched. We'll take these in order. We'll build the timeline carefully. We'll talk about what we know, what we don't, what the searches looked like, what the eyewitnesses claimed, what the official record does and does not preserve. And then we'll step into the folklore, the theories that range from the sensible to the cosmic. Because once a place gains a reputation, everything that happens there becomes part of the story, and the story becomes hungry. To understand why these disappearances still bother people, you have to picture the geography. This isn't a neat postcard mountain with a single obvious summit and a tidy trail. This is layered wilderness, ridgelines and hollows, wet ground, sudden drops, thick stands of beech and spruce, and weather that changes the rules without warning. Route 9 slices through the area east of Bennington, a road that feels civilised until you step off it. And not far from that road lies the Long Trail, a north-south footpath, older than most people realise, one that runs through deep sections of forest where, even today, you can walk for hours without seeing another person. Glastenbury itself is a ghost of a town, a logging community that faded, emptied, and was eventually absorbed by the forest. Which means there are old tracks out there, routes people once used, now half erased, misleading, ending in nothing. The sort of terrain where you can be near safety, but not able to reach it. Searchers later described this country as deceptive, quiet, close to civilization but remote in practice. The kind of place where sound doesn't travel cleanly, where you can shout and hear only your own voice bounce back. And this is important. It's also bear habitat, not in the sensational monster way, in the normal, practical way. Wildlife exists here. It moves through the same woods, it scavenges, it scatters. So when someone disappears in this landscape, the first and most brutal reality is simple. The longer they're missing, the less likely you are to find anything intact. Which brings us to the first of the 5. Middy Rivers, 12th November 1945. A hunting trip near Glastenbury Mountain, late autumn, the season when the woods are a patchwork of colour and rot. Leaves slick underfoot, daylight already shortening. Middy Rivers was 74 years old. Not a teenager making a reckless choice, not a tourist. He was described as experienced, a man familiar with the outdoors, someone who had done this before. That matters, because it removes the comforting explanation that only the unprepared get lost. The last known actions are simple. Rivers separated from the group. Different accounts describe it slightly differently, whether he walked ahead, whether he took another path. But the core is the same. One moment he is part of a hunting party. The next moment he's alone in thick country. When he doesn't return, a search begins. Locals organise, volunteers, law enforcement, even military assistance in some reports. An effort that grows as days pass. And yet nothing solid is recovered. No clothing clearly identified, no weapon, no remains. Just the sense that a man walked into the trees, and the trees did not give him back. Now on its own, this could be written off as a wilderness tragedy. An older man has a medical event, a fall, disorientation. It happens. But a year later, the second disappearance lands like a hammer blow, because it's brighter, louder, and far harder for a community to absorb. Paula Jean Weldon, 1st of December 1946. Paula Jean is 18 years old, a student at Bennington College. This is the disappearance that becomes the beating heart of the Bennington Triangle story, partly because of who she is, and partly because of how public it becomes. Paula leaves campus in the afternoon, sometime around the middle of the day. She tells her roommate she's going for a walk, a break, a hike. She doesn't pack as though she plans to be long. No heavy gear, no survival supplies. Her clothing is suitable for a short outing, not for a winter night in the mountains. And that detail is chilling, because it tells you what she believed. And coming back. There are reported sightings as she travels toward the trail. She hitchhikes part of the way. A driver later says she asked to be dropped near Route 9, toward the long trail access. And there is the final confirmed sighting. The last moments of Paula Weldon as a person moving through the world. She speaks to a man on the trail, asking him how far it goes. He tells her, all the way to Canada. Imagine hearing that as an 18-year-old on a late afternoon in December. Imagine how the words might land. Romantic, daring, vast. Imagine the temptation to keep going just a bit further. And then imagine the light collapsing. Sunset comes early. Temperatures drop. And later accounts note snow falling that night, accumulating enough to change footprints, to soften edges, to cover mistakes. By the next day, she hasn't returned. The alarm spreads. What happens next is one of the largest searches the area had seen. Volunteers, students, locals, officials. For a time, Bennington College effectively pauses. People go out into the woods and look for her. But here is where the official record becomes part of the haunting. At the time, Vermont did not have a modern statewide police organisation with centralised search and rescue infrastructure in the way we think of today. The response is local, pieced together, and frantic. And Paula's father is furious. He criticises the handling of the case. He pushes for resources. He believes mistakes were made early. The kind of mistakes that can't be undone once days pass and the weather changes. And within a year, Vermont establishes the Vermont State Police. That doesn't tell us what happened to Paula, but it tells us how badly her disappearance shook the system. It becomes a legacy in itself. A missing girl whose absence helped to reshape law enforcement in the state. Yet Paula is never found. No verified trace, no body, no certain ending. And that unanswered void becomes a magnet for theories, misadventure, suicide, running away, abduction, murder. A young woman vanishes in broad daylight on a trail that people walk. And for many, that feels impossible. 3 years later, exactly 3 years to the day, the third disappearance gives the impossible narrative a new shape. James Tedford, 1st of December, 1949. James Tedford is 68 years old, a veteran. Later accounts mention mental health struggles. He's travelling by bus toward Bennington after visiting family. This is not wilderness. This is routine, public transport, a shared space. And the core claim, the one that makes people lean in, is that Tedford boards the bus, is seen by other passengers, and then is not there when the bus arrives. His belongings are reportedly found still in place. The seat is empty. The man is gone. Now, we need to be careful here. This case in particular has been embellished in retellings over the decades. The sensation of vanished from a moving bus has a folklore quality, and some sources point out practical issues. Multiple stops, long travel time, confusion about when he was actually last seen, and when he was reported missing. So what do we do with that? We do what we should always do in a story like this. We separate the confirmed core from the mythic shell. The confirmed core is this. Tedford disappeared during a journey where people expected him to arrive. He doesn't. No trace is found. That much is consistent in later reporting. The mythic shell is the idea that he dematerialized in front of witnesses like a stage trick. What's spooky is that even if you strip away the supernatural framing, what you're left with is still disturbing. A man disappears into a gap in the timeline. The kind of gap investigators hate. The kind where the when isn't precise, which means the where could be anywhere. If he got off at an earlier stop, where? If something happened en route, where? If he was disorientated, where did he go? And that uncertainty becomes a breeding ground for something darker than fact, imagination. Because once a community has already watched a hunter and a student vanish into the same general wilderness, a missing man with an unclear timeline feels like the forest reaching beyond its boundaries. And then in October 1950, the story turns its attention toward a child. Paul Buddy Jepson, 12th of October 1950. Paul Jepson is 8 years old, often nicknamed Buddy in retellings. Some accounts describe him as having special needs. He's with his mother. She is doing chores, tending to pigs, near the Bennington town dump area. She leaves him in the truck, not for hours, not for an afternoon, for a short time. When she returns, he is gone. Searchers flood the area. People look in the obvious places first. The woods, the dump, the roads. Dogs are brought in, bloodhounds, trained to pull truth from scent. And the reported detail that makes this case stick to the ribs is the end of the trail. The dogs track Paul's scent to a road junction, and then it stops, as if he climbed into a vehicle, as if he was taken, as if the earth itself let go of him. From here theories split. He wandered and succumbed to the elements. He fell into water. He was struck by a vehicle and removed in panic. He was abducted. And then, of course, the paranormal theories. Because a child disappearing without a trace is the kind of grief that demands a villain. 16 days later, another adult disappears in similar country. And this time a body is eventually found. But the finding does not solve the mystery. It only deepens it. Frida Langer, 28th of October 1950. Found 12th of May 1951. Frida Langer is 53 years old. She's camping near Somerset Reservoir with family. During a hike, she falls into a stream, soaks her clothes, and she makes a practical decision. She will return to camp, change, and rejoin the others. Her cousin watches her head off. He expects to see her again soon. He doesn't. Searchers comb the area. They expand. They repeat. They fly over sections. They look where logic says a person would go. No Frida. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Then on May 12th, 1951, more than 6 months later, her body is found, approximately 3.5 miles from the camp, in an area that, according to some later accounts, had not been searched thoroughly. Her remains are too deteriorated to determine a clear cause of death. So what does that mean? It means she's both found and still missing. Found in the sense that a family has a body. Missing in the sense that no one can say what happened. A fall, a drowning, exposure, a medical episode, an accident followed by the woods doing what woods do. Misleading, concealing, erasing. And if you're looking for a clean ending, you don't get one. You get a partial answer. And partial answers are uncanny, because they feel like the world stopped mid-sentence. If you're searching for a neat folder, labelled Bennington Triangle, official explanation, you won't find it. Partly because the triangle is a name applied later. The investigators at the time weren't chasing a triangle. They were chasing individual disappearances. And partly because mid-century investigation leaves a different paper trail than modern cases. Some documents exist in archives, some are referenced in newspapers, some are implied through later interviews, some are inaccessible or unspecified, not digitised, not public, or simply not centralised. We do know a few things that matter. The searches were extensive, but the terrain is punishing. Weather matters. Snow in the Weldon case, autumn conditions in the Jepson and Langer cases. Time matters. The longer the delay, the harder recovery becomes. And the early lack of coordinated statewide infrastructure in Vermont became an issue in the Weldon case. That does not prove foul play. it does not prove the paranormal. What it does prove is something far more unsettling in a quiet way. You can do everything right and still never find the answer. Eyewitness accounts haunt these cases because they create an illusion of proximity. Paula Weldon was seen, spoken to. Her presence is briefly held by the memories of strangers, and then she steps beyond the last confirmed interaction and becomes a person the world no longer contains. James Tedford's story, at least in its popular form, hinges on other people seeing him, ordinary passengers, a bus driver, a seatmate who later swears he was there. And then, because the outcome is unthinkable, the mind searches backward. For a moment it can blame. Did someone misremember? Did someone lie? Did someone miss a stop? Or did something stranger happen? And this is the problem with eyewitnesses. They feel like anchors, but they can drift. In mysteries, memory is often both the only evidence and the least stable, which leaves us with the question the public always asks. If it isn't memory, and it isn't simple misadventure, then what is it? Here's the crucial turning point. For decades, these cases were not universally presented as a single phenomenon. They were tragedies, local mysteries, episodes that bubbled up when anniversaries came around, or when someone wrote a retrospective. Then, in the early 1990s, author and folklorist Joseph A. Citro coined the phrase, the Bennington Triangle. It was a branding of sorts, a narrative hook, comparing the region to other triangles like Bermuda, a way to express the eerie clustering of vanishings in one geographical pocket. And once you name something, you give it life. You create a container people can pour stories into. From that point on, theories multiply and organise themselves into familiar categories. 1. Disorientation, exposure and accident. A person gets lost. Panic changes decisions. Weather drops. Weather changes. Injury prevents movement. They die where they fall. Then animals and seasons scatter what remains. This theory is brutal because it's ordinary. 2. Animal encounter. Bear, wildcat. Environmental hazard. Not as sensational as it sounds. Even if an animal doesn't attack, scavenging can move remains and destroy evidence. That matters. 3. A human predator. A serial offender working the area. Opportunistic abduction, murder, concealment. The difficulty. The victims are wildly different, and circumstances don't present a single clean behavioural pattern. 4. The unsettling theories. The lost horizon idea. Local press at the time occasionally leaned into mythology. The notion that this region had a quality of vanishing, like a doorway that didn't open both ways. Not evidence, but a reflection of how fear spreads when answers don't. 5. Paranormal explanations. Portals, UFOs. A thin place where reality tears, curses, like the Bennington monster, a Bigfoot-like figure sometimes described in regional lore. These theories thrive because they answer the emotional question, not the forensic one. They give the void a face. But the truth is, in the Bennington Triangle, the void might not have a face at all. It might simply be the forest, doing what it does best, swallowing the small, fragile evidence of human life. Even if the disappearances are confined to 1945 to 51, the story of the Bennington Triangle stretches far beyond. In the 1950s, magazine culture and strange tales publications helped circulate the idea that something unusual was in the Glastenbury region. By the time you reach the late 1970s and 80s, mass-market mystery collections, the kind of books that sat in living rooms and school libraries, helped fossilise the story as one of those places. The triangle becomes a concept people encounter before they encounter the details. And once that happens, the details start to shift to match the concept. In 1992, the label Bennington Triangle gives everything a clean, spooky shape. In 2018, Paranormal Television repackages it for a new audience, framing the wilderness as a haunted location. And that's where we are now, in the area where the Bennington Triangle lives as both true cases and cultural object, real disappearances, and a story that's growing teeth. So what is the Bennington Triangle? Is it a cursed patch of land, a paranormal doorway, a hungry wilderness, a cluster of tragedies made to look like a pattern by the way humans fear randomness? Here's the uncomfortable thing. It can be two things at once. It can be a set of real disappearances, each with its own likely grounded explanation, and also a legend shaped by the fact that we don't have the bodies, the evidence, the final clarity. Because when you don't have an ending, your mind writes one. And in the Bennington woods, the endings don't come easily. Somewhere east of Bennington, the long trail continues north. It crosses ridges and dips into hollows. It threads through a region that still looks, in places, like it did in 1946. And if you walk it far enough, you might feel it, that moment where the forest shifts, where time behaves badly, where you think irrationally, don't step off the trail. Not because you'll get lost, but because you might not come back.
Hi, who here loves when their nails are perfectly done? Me. I'm Sarah Gibson Tuttle, and I started Olive in June because, let's be real, we all deserve to have gorgeous nails, but who wants to spend a fortune or half their day at the salon? And that's why I created the Mani system, so you can have that salon-perfect manicure right at home. And guess what? The best part? Each mani only costs $2. Yup, you heard me, $2. No more $30, $40, $50 salon trips that eat up your day. Now you can paint your nails whenever you want, wherever you want, and trust me, you're gonna be obsessed with your nails and everyone is gonna ask you, where did you get your nails done? And here's a little something extra. Head over to oliveinjune.com and get 20% off your first Mani system with code PERFECTMANI20 at oliveinjune.com/PERFECTMANI20. That's code PERFECTMANI20 for 20% off at oliveinjune.com/PERFECTMANI20. You're all set for a nail glow up. Let's get those nails looking fabulous, shall we?
Hi, this is Matt from P1 with Matt and Tommy, and this episode is sponsored by eBay. The cars you'll find on eBay are just different. They come with a story that you can't wait to share. Like this 1973 Dodge Charger on eBay that has been tucked away in an Arizona barn for over 40 years, only 55,000 miles, and somehow in great running order. It even has a rare sunroof. Suddenly, a car that was hidden for decades is being delivered in just a few clicks with eBay's secure purchase. All the paperwork handled. There are thousands of cars on eBay, from unique finds like the Pontiac Grand Prix SJ to daily drivers, and now with a new way to buy them. eBay. Things people love.
I wanted to take a really critical kind of look at these disappearances. I do think there is something strange going on, mainly because most of the bodies have never been found. But not really knowing the area, I'm not sure how vast it is. The one trail goes to Canada, so that tells me it's huge. But you would have thought there'd be some kind of evidence of something happening with all of those people disappearing. And of course there's a load of folklore attached to the mountain. And it's just a bit creepy. And I can imagine that all of a sudden you'd notice that you probably walked a bit too far and it's getting dark. And what are you going to find out there? And that, to me, is pretty scary. But that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you again on Tuesday. Take care, everyone.
Youth mental health is a complex challenge that requires comprehensive solutions. We must strengthen after-school programs. We must make digital literacy tools available in our schools. We must work with mental health professionals to support children. And we must empower mentors, educators, and parents to keep kids happy. Learn more about our commitment to finding lasting solutions at empowerourfuturecoalition.com/solutions. Paid for by the Coalition to Empower Our Future.
That's the sound of a big deal. At Wayfair, that sound happens a lot. Dream sofa for half the price? Big deal. New dining table you've been eyeing for months? Big deal. Finally picking up those last few pieces and finishing that bedroom? Now that's a really big deal. Whatever your home needs, Wayfair has the selection, the savings, and over millions of 5-star reviews to back it up. Shop Wayfair.com today before someone else snags your big deal.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
With its 2 juicy beef patties, 3 slices of melted cheese, and tangy Big Arch sauce, the Big Arch is what happens when you start making a McDonald's burger and never stop. The Big Arch, the most McDonald's burger yet, for a limited time.
The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.